Thank you. Good. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much. And any members of the public, I see Alex out there. Kristen, welcome. This is the revised agenda for the regular council meeting of Monday, February the 28th, 2022. And at this point in time, we'd like to acknowledge with gratitude that we live and work on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation, whose people have been for millennium stewards of these lands and waters surrounding the Clalaquam Bowen Island. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and introduction of late items. Late items, Hope? Did we get them all?
There are none.
Okay.
No on table items.
Super. And anybody have anything that they'd like to add to the agenda, or is it they feel has been omitted or anything like that? I'm not seeing any hands. Then we will approve the agenda by consensus. Move on to public comments. Hope, anybody out there?
I have no one registered.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move right on to the consent agenda. Having gone through the consent agenda, does anybody have anything they'd like a little bit of clarification on or something like that? Sue Ellen, I see your hand up there. Go ahead.
Sorry, you're muted.
Sorry, 12.4, please, if that could be pulled.
Sure.
Just quick.
12.4. Oh yeah, okay, good. Yeah. And anybody else? I don't see any. So I will recommend the council approve the items as outlined in the February 28th, 2022 consent agenda as amended. And we'll just take that. Okay, I got a second for Sue Ellen. All in favor, aye. Thank you, 100%. And we will move on with that item, Sue Ellen. 12 points.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This 12.4 is it's the bit about Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development about Mount Gardner Trails. And I just wanted to flag for community members, because I just saw a couple of letters come in, email during our previous meeting today, that the ministries have been shuffled. And so now Minister Osborne is the Minister of Public Land Stewardship, I guess you could say. And Forestry stays with Minister Conroy. And anyway, I just wonder if I did see a press release or a notification of some kind about BC Recreation and Trails, that it was moving into the that function that we're dealing with the Mount Gardner thing was moving into the same area as provincial parks, and as the Recreation Council had been proposing since back in the 70s. So that may change things, and I just wanted to flag that and see if anybody else had any other information about that.
Anybody have any information? It doesn't look that way.
Did I hear that it went under environment? I thought I saw the same thing that Sue Ellen saw, but I thought it was going under environment. Maybe I.
Well, we'll probably find out on our next agenda, but I just wanted to flag that things might be changing.
Yeah.
From the press releases I saw, so partly just for the public. Thank you. That's it.
And there might be a little bit of disconnection there too. Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. And okay, so there is no recommendation after that. So we'll just move on to delegations, Hope, please. Nothing. No.
There are none.
Okay, thank you. And okay, so just before we get into the meat of this, on the last council meeting was a bit of an interesting one. It was late, and the closed meeting got a little bit carried away. I would like participants to just try to stick to 5 minutes. And if you can stick to 5 minutes, you can always come back, but we'd like to get everybody in and hear everybody's comments. So that's just one thing. I think it would work a lot smoother that way. So I will be trying to monitor a little bit more than I have. Thank you. So business arising from the minutes is dealt with under the consent agenda, right into bylaws. 7.1 pesticide use control bylaw number 556 2021. Bonnie Brokenshire, Manager of Environment and Parks Planning. Bonnie, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council. I just is my screen showing okay?
Yeah.
Great. So the purpose of this presentation is to present Council for a second time with bylaw number 556 2021, which is the bylaw to regulate the use of pesticides, and bylaw number 557 2021 to include enforcement notices for bylaw 556. So a bit of background, I presented a report and Council gave first reading to bylaw number 556 and 557 at the November 8th meeting. And Council recommended that staff facilitate a public information meeting prior to the reading of the bylaws for a second time. And BIM staff held a public information meeting on January 26th, 2022, and Bowen Island Food Resilience Society and BIM staff presented at that meeting, and the information was well received. It was a small but very engaged group of 13 that attended the Zoom meeting. So just a bit of reiteration of where the bylaw does apply. So bylaw 556, it regulates the pesticides used on outdoor trees, shrubs, flowers, ornamental gardens, ornamental plants, or turf in, under, or upon any public lands or private lands within the municipality. And for the purposes of this bylaw, private lands means a parcel or part of a parcel if the parcel or part is zoned for residential purposes in the municipality. Private lands do not include parcels of land zoned for industrial, commercial, or institutional purposes. And public lands for the purposes of this bylaw means that they're lands owned, held, or under the care, custody, or possession of the municipality. And for the purposes of this bylaw, public lands do not include provincial crown lands or Metro Vancouver Crippen Park. So a few changes from the first reading as per council direction included a definition of pest, and also the definition of transportation was removed. There is a track change version 2 in your package this evening if you wanted to refer to that. I tightened up and enhanced clarity regarding conditions where issuance of a permit will be considered, and also clarification about the length of permit validity was tightened up. Clarified language about where the bylaw applies, just some minor text changes there, and minor word adjustments and improved grammar in a few instances. Also in the fact sheet, I just wanted to address Councillor Kale's request. In the fact sheet, we did add some names of common pesticides. That was a question or a comment that Councillor Kale had brought up at the last meeting. So financial considerations, enforcement of bylaw 556 may entail additional staff time and resources, but otherwise this bylaw is not anticipated to have financial implications. And communication to the public, just as I mentioned, we have created a fact sheet, which the updated version is included in the your package tonight. And also Will Husby has created an integrated pest management draft resource that will be available in 2022. So the recommendations before council tonight is that bylaw number 556, 2021, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Pesticide Use Control Bylaw number 556, 2021 be read a second time, and that bylaw number 557, 2021, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Bylaw Notice Enforcement Bylaw number 196, 2008, Amendment Bylaw number 557, 2021, be read a second time. Just included a couple of alternatives. The first alternative that is that if council not have substantial changes and wish to accelerate the adoption of the bylaw, council may give bylaw 556 and 557 7 second and third readings at this meeting. And the second alternative is that if council has substantial revisions, that the bylaws be referred back to staff prior to receiving future readings. And that's the end of the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. And I'm just looking for comments here. Allison first and then Sue Ellen.
Couple of questions. I think we've got recreational zoned lands on both. And I know you said it only applies to residential, but in the fact sheet and the discussion, you're saying it's only, it doesn't apply to industrial, commercial, or institutional, but it also does not apply to recreational lands, correct?
As I can look into that further, Councillor Morris, but my understanding is under the community charter, it's very clearly lined out. And it, as far as my research, it was just commercial, industrial, and institutional lands.
Okay, but but the way you've written the bylaw, you said it's applied to private residential lands.
Residential zone or residential lands or land zoned for residential purposes.
Okay, so the province says you can't do industrial, institutional, or commercial, but we have chosen not to include recreational in the pesticide ban.
I guess, you know, that is something that council could explore and come back with including that. It wasn't a conscious omission.
Do we have recreation zones?
Well, isn't the golf course a recreational zone?
Well, no, it's
And
a CD. It's a
Veterans
CD.
Field be recreational?
No, Veterans Field is a park. It's
Or
and
so
also and the golf course is a comprehensive development.
Yeah.
And it's considered commercial.
Oh, is it?
Commercial enterprise. I mean, it could be argued that it's commercial enterprise.
Oh, okay. Because I know in the OCP, it says that land must be used for recreational purposes.
Yeah, it's not zoned according to, it's a CD zone.
Okay, so, but there's land zoned residential within CD zones.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's
so
not.
for
the whole-
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, that was my first question. My second one has to do with, I'm just turning the pages here. In your fact sheet, you use some very nice terms, but what do they mean for the pesticides you're talking about?
Can you explain or just
Well,
point out
you
which
said you added the names of pesticides that are, so you said some examples include tricholepar, picola. So if I went to the Home Depot or Home Hardware and looked for a can that said tricholepar on it, I wouldn't find one, but I'd find a can that said Raid or Roundup or.
Well, I know I'm steering away from sort of those commercial names and keeping with the chemical components. And if you read the fine print of any commercially available product, it's going to list the ingredients. And when there's anything that you don't, if you can't pronounce it, and this is just if you can't pronounce it and it's a chemical compound, you can rest assured that it's most likely covered under the bylaw. It's hard to list all names of Raid and Roundup and all those things because there's many products that
Brands.
would have.
Okay, so very simply, can I use Raid ant killer or not?
I'd have to look at the ingredients. I don't off the top of my head know what the ingredients are rated.
Well,
But if you-
I guess I'm just thinking of a public education. It's really hard to read the fine print when you're in the store if you don't have your magnifying glass. So
yeah.
there could be a list. Okay, and then I guess, and the other thing is that in the fact sheet, how do I get a permit? Nobody's going to know who the departmental manager is. So can you just say something like my desk at BIM or the building permit department or something? And then in the bylaw itself, oh damn it. Take the other questions. I'll find the question because I think you've got something that needs to be fixed.
Okay, thanks, Allison. Sue Ellen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for bringing this forward. I'm in support. And in fact, I'm depending on the answer to my question that I'll ask at the end of this quick little bit, I might be going for that first alternative, which is to do second and third reading. The reason is because I haven't seen very many comments against this so far, and we've got the compost project also going ahead, which could be affected by chemical pesticides in the product, in the feedstock, and I wouldn't want the grade A compost to be threatened by that. And I know from, our time on council, the artificial turf field, people didn't want asphalt-based or fossil fuel-based products in there. They wanted organic product, and that's what we got with the walnuts. And I like the nature-friendly approach here that fits with what I've heard through my years on Bowen. And I'm wondering if you can, I gather that there are 13 people came to the public information meeting. Have you heard much concern about this bylaw?
Thanks, Councillor Fast. I've had one person call me with concern about not being able to treat blackberries on their property. And so I went through sort of the process with them. They can still treat blackberries on their property. There's, invasive plants can be treated. We are looking for an integrated sort of pest management approach, demonstration of other methods, that sort of thing. But after speaking to this one particular person, they seemed very satisfied with my explanation. And, we realize that invasive plants are a problem, and this bylaw is not designed to negate the ability for people to treat problematic species. And then at the public information session, everybody was very, very in favor of the bylaw. I would say we didn't have anybody that, everybody was kind of in the know that was there. But I haven't heard really any other concern thus far.
Very good. Thank you very much. And I also really appreciate the the education side of it that's here, and the way you've described some of the organic methods too, including Bacillus thuringiensis, which my dad worked on as a research scientist. So that's just a little interesting by the way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joella. Allison, go ahead. Allison. Everybody else hear me? There you go.
No, sorry. I clicked it, but it didn't work.
All right.
So it's Schedule A, and the permit exempt noxious weeds. Okay, I think I'm understanding it, but it says the method used for the treatment and control of. Okay, so permit exempt noxious weeds is a term. It's not control of the permit. It just sort of, I guess I was questioning why the word permit was in there.
What page are you on? Where are you? Sorry.
I'm on Schedule A.
Yeah, it's
Page 5 of
6.
11 on my package because I'm using agenda notes.
12, yeah.
Sorry, what was that, Mr. Mayor? 12?
6 of 12 or 28 of 30. No, it's not 28. 29 of 35.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess it's permit exempt noxious weeds is a term. That's why the word permit's in there. I was reading it control of the permit quote.
Oh,
Okay. So,
Permit.
yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Looking at the title, that makes sense. All right.
Okay, thanks, Allison.
But I do hope you're going to come up with some examples of layman's language so I don't have to read all the terms when Alan goes to buy his roundup.
Yeah, I hope so.
It's good comment.
Okay. Maureen.
Thank you. Bonnie, I was wondering, has there been any discussion with the folks at the building center about this bylaw?
Yes, there has actually. Yes. So they don't currently sell any weed or noxious sort of chemicals, which is really great to hear that. So yeah, they had no concerns with the bylaw.
Okay, thank you. I was just thinking that a member of the public, if they were going to purchase these products, it would be the building center that they would be most likely to turn to. So it's good they're in the loop. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. Is that it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sue Ellen?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the first alternative, hearing that there has only been the one concern and thinking about all the work that staff have to do, including from our committee, the whole work, and hoping to streamline the process. I'd like to move that council.
Sue Ellen, just hold on for a second. Just show of hands. Who doesn't mind going for the, what is it, the second and third readings? Everybody okay with that? Okay, that's good. Let's just read it then.
Okay, that bylaw number 556, 2021, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Pest Use Control Bylaw number 556, 2021, be read a second time and a third time.
Yeah.
Second and third.
And third, and that bylaw number 557, 2021, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Bylaw Notice Enforcement Bylaw number 196, 2008, Amendment Bylaw number 557, 2021, be read a second and third time.
Okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion on this? Okay, I'll ask a question. Maureen, go ahead.
Sorry, just a quick question. The point that Allison brought up earlier on about the, sorry, my cat's going crazy, about the permit exempt noxious weeds. I didn't quite follow what that discussion was. What was going on there?
I was reading it as the permit was its own term, not part of the adjective in front of noxious weeds.
It's all an adjective. Imagine dashes.
So it's supposed to read permit exempt noxious weeds.
As one, it's a term, a definition.
Permit exempt, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was reading it, yeah.
So like these noxious weeds are exempt.
Right, so you need a hyphen because the public's not going to understand that either. Permit hyphen exempt.
Okay, then you need to change the title too.
If you could.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's very nice. Any other comments? Yeah, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Bonnie.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Great move. So we have no staff reports. We have no correspondence, and we're going to move on to reports of committees, and commissions. And 10.1, Councillors Hawking, Nicholson, and the Manager of Environment and Parks Planning, Bonnie Brokachair. Minutes and recommendations of the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee meeting held February 1st, 2022. Okay, all right. So whoever wants to start that off.
I'm happy to start unless Bonnie has got some words she wants to say, or Maureen. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I guess I'll say a few words about it. So there's been discussion at that committee around the whole issue of managing natural assets and how can we move forward on that. And Maureen and I explained that the municipality is interested in that, but we've got to get our engineered assets organized. It's sort of the first step, and that's what we're working on right now. So the committee, now remember that the committee just did a whole lot of work on this pesticide bylaw. Like there's some fairly well-informed and strong people on that committee. They wanted to get going on doing that, and I'll read it in the, it's on page 4 of 6 at the bottom of their work plan. D, recommend that council direct staff to create an outline of a natural assets inventory. So in other words, not to do the work, but to talk to the folks who are doing work on this and create an outline of what this would look like, what the elements would be. Anything else to add, Maureen or Bonnie? Or
There were some concerns expressed at the meeting about the time that might be required. And in response to that concern, we modified the recommendation to plans as opposed to actually introducing natural assets strategy.
Can you
I'm
remind
sorry,
me where
Maureen,
that is?
I didn't quite understand that.
Sorry?
I didn't quite understand, is what's here the final recommendation that you modified from the original one?
originally, people were talking about going further, so it's just an outline.
Oh, okay.
So it's providing recommendations, Allison. So what's on the table is what is in the agenda.
All right, Allison?
Okay,
All right.
so are we then, are by approving the work plan, we're approving staff creating an outline for a natural assets inventory? Or is that going to be a separate motion some future time?
Separate. What we have in front of us is we've got approval of the work plan as one recommendation, and David didn't speak to that specifically. And then there is the recommendations for the committee to provide recommendations for the development of the natural assets inventory. So they're on the table as two separate items. And they were discussed at the meetings as two separate items.
All right, Sue Ellen.
Thank you for this reporting from the committee. Great work, and I'm happy to move the motion about the work plan and the second one too, if you'd like. I just don't see a lot of discussion happening here, so I'd like to move that the committee, that council approve the 2022 Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee work plan as included in the February 28th, 2022 regular council agenda.
All right, and a second, we got Maureen. And further discussion on that, Allison?
Well, yeah, I had a question on the, I asked the one about Maureen because we were talking about it. I was confused by that and the recommendation.
Okay.
On the very first one about water conservation strategies, I'm wondering why the water local service area advisory committees aren't on the partnership list.
That's a good question.
Well, the Garden Club is actually very active on this, and they're proposing more work that we look at. It's on the agenda of our next Environment Committee meeting to look at what the Garden Club is proposing. So there's plenty of work from there. I don't, I guess
Well, they're the ones that, you know, make recommendations to council and for budgeting and, you know, rate setting and all that stuff. So if you don't involve them at the beginning and just plot them in with a fait accompli, I think it would be, if you're planning on going out to talk about water conservation and coming to the annual information meetings for the water systems and the annual budget meetings for the LACs is something that you should be thinking about adding to the list.
Okay.
And then my other question was, what does BIFS stand for? Is that Bowen Island Fire Service?
It's food resilience.
Yeah.
I think the acronym might have gotten muddled in.
FRS, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good
Hey, Mr.
point.
Mayor?
Is there any objection? Yeah, is there any objection putting the LECs in on that contact list?
I have a point.
Yeah, go ahead, Sue Ellen.
I was thinking that for a volunteer advisory group to go to the water committees,
Yeah.
who usually work with staff. I think it would be better if this advisory committee is working with community partnership groups, and with the current issues about water and the work that's being done, I would sooner leave the communicating with the water advisory committees to staff. It seems to me that that's at a different kind of level and topic than this one. And certainly once this committee creates something and if staff wishes to refer that out, maybe that would be the way to go. But I just don't want to see volunteers and individual councillors
Having to deal with the LECs.
well, Ellie,
Yeah.
they're used to working with staff on the engineering sort of side of things, and I wonder if that wouldn't be premature. Thank you.
I agree with Sue Ellen.
It's a good point, yeah.
I was feeling somewhat uncomfortable, but I wasn't quite sure why. And Sue Ellen
That's it.
explained it, I think, quite nicely.
Yeah, I think you're
Well,
right.
they
Sue.
certainly do talk about water pricing structures
Sure.
at the LIC meeting. So that's, when we get to that, you may be hearing from me. My last question had to do with budget. And it's the very last item about publishing something in June or July, a climate action handbook. So does this committee have a budget to pay for publishing, or where would the cost?
Yeah, we can absorb that in our operating. Carl and I, we would come out with a digital form and disseminate it that way. We may print a few copies. That's what we tend to do these days. We don't really print a lot of hard copies, but definitely if somebody needs that, we can print it for them.
So you do have a budget category would pick that up in the time for
there's no external funding needed.
photoshopping's not the right word, Maureen, for getting it in the publishing layout and all that sort of stuff. Okay, thank you.
The chair of the committee is or already has received the electronic files for the Saanich handbook, and we have permission to work with those files, and Will has taken the helm to move forward with the modifications for the Bowen context.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. All right, is that it, Allison?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation has been first and seconded?
Yes.
It has, okay. Then I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye. Terrific. Well done.
And then,
Okay. Yeah.
and then, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that council direct the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee to provide recommendations for the development of a natural assets inventory as resources permit.
Yeah. Okay. The key on that is as resources permit.
Sure.
Okay. And a second on that. Thank you, Maureen. Discussion. Okay. And I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right. Thank you. Allison, opposition?
I stuck my hand up.
Okay. I just can't get them all that fast on my little screen. All right. Thank you very much on that, everybody. And so we're going to move on to 10.2, which is Councilors Morse and Nicholson read minutes of the Community Economic Development Committee meeting held February the 7th. And over to you two.
Allison, do you want to speak to this?
I was trying to bring my budget up. I haven't got it in front of me.
Okay.
$50,000.
I thought it was an agenda item. It's not what's coming up.
It is. It's item 10.2. So what you have is you've got the minutes and the
Yeah, I don't have.
budget request. And this is actually lower, I believe, than the CEDC requests have been in the past. So
We've been closer to 30 to 35,000 in the past.
not quite that high in recent years. So it's broken down, I think, fairly clearly. If there are any questions, happy to answer.
Sue Ellen, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing this. I I'm a little out of touch with this committee. I wonder if, I was wondering about the big community economic development plan and how that fit into this. I remember we had a session about it. It was very interesting. And also, what are the engagement events that would cost $4,575? If
That's a big
somebody
ticket.
could explain a little bit, thank you.
That item is actually related to your first question. So this is working with the community economic development plan that we had our council.
Uh-oh.
Frozen. She froze
Oh.
out.
That's our money that we need to go ahead and do what we need to do to get the plan into a form that we can implement it, decide which steps we're going to go forward. Yeah.
Sorry, Maureen, you
Maureen, you
froze.
froze, so I sort of started talking.
Yeah.
Am I unfrozen now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Okay. So the engagement events are with different sectors of the community. They're invitational events. They build on the work that was done in the plan, but we will be bringing in key people from the various sectors that we worked with earlier on, not so much with an eye to collecting information as we did in the first part of this project with the consultants, but rather figuring out what the implementable steps will be. So it's to cover the costs of meetings with 6 to 7 different sectors.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on this? If not, the recommendation is,
Council direct staff to include the
Thank you.
community economic development budget request of $15,000 in the 2022 budget process.
okay,
I'll second that.
thank you, Michael. And further discussion? No, last question, all in favor, aye. Okay, that looks great, thank you. And we'll move on to new business. First item on the agenda is 11.1 Community Center Project. Liam Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. As you will have noticed, the site has been or is being cleared. It's not fully cleared. The sub trades that are working there will, once all of the trees have been cleared, will be looking to start excavating and start the blasting. I don't have a clear timeline when the actual blasting will occur, but I imagine it'll be a couple of weeks still before they actually do blasting itself. And the perimeter has now been fully secured with security fencing, and we've had good lines of communication with the community school and making sure that the kids stay clear. But I was just down there today and did notice a few kids literally up against the chain link watching, right? So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I know for the local blaster did ask about any additional security needed during that. So we're paying a close eye to that. And so far so good. We're really just at the very beginning, and we'll continue to provide you updates and have this time here too for fielding questions if there are any questions about what's happening. Just a note on the logs from the site. So the contractor's going to, we've applied for a timber mark, and we'll be trucking any salvageable lumber or wood for pulp off the island in the hopes to recover some of the funds that cost for the removal. And then they're going to have a large chipper on site, so there'll be no burning. And there still may be an option for possible firewood opportunity, but the goal is to try to minimize the cost of the project. And so we're really only going to be pursuing any kind of community firewood campaign if there's actually an easy way to do it without the subcontractor having to take on additional costs, or us too. So we'll keep you posted on how that carries on. But we're really happy to have Highwalker doing the sub work for the civil site, because I'm not sure if folks know, but Highwalker is a company that's owned and managed by 2 Bowen Island folks, but they operate out of the North Shore. So they born and raised on Bowen, and so they know the lay of the land quite well. So it's great to have them doing that work. So I'll pause there.
Liam, did what's going to happen with all the chips? Are they going up to?
We haven't. I didn't ask.
It's gonna be a lot of chips.
I didn't ask Dustin that. Yeah, there will be a lot of chips. I mean, I don't, and I haven't talked with Bonnie and Carla about whether it's even feasible to store them for the amount of time it will take to get the composting facility up and running. The composting facility will require a lot of chips, and so that's something worth considering. Is it worth stockpiling that, or can it go to use? Can we actually use it in our parks operations or for the public too? So I'll be talking with Dustin at Highwalker about that as well.
Yeah, any way you do it, you're gonna have to find somewhere to store it. It's going to be a considerable amount. I was thinking about that. Anyway, anybody else got any questions about the ongoing thing there? No? Okay. Is that it, Liam, on that one?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to 11.2, which is the CAO update from Liam Edwards.
Oh, sorry. There was a motion associated with that one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I forgot about that.
Oh, this
Thank
is
you.
this is the important part.
Thank you, Hope.
I can see we're getting money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I thought we're just doing verbal updates on the community center project itself too. So yeah, and along the way, we never did get, we dug through all of the motions around the project and such, and we never did get a motion from council to waive the permitting fees for the project. And so we're seeking that waiver tonight.
All right. Anybody have any issues with that? Michael, go ahead.
Gary, I have no issues. I support it.
Okay.
But just for the sake of being fair to all, just what are we waiving in terms of dollars and cents?
So we're waiving the building permit fees. So we're those types of fees. We're not waiving any other fees like for water, sewer, but we're waiving the building permit fees and the driveway access fee.
So a few $100s.
No.
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 No, the building permit is the
A percentage of it.
percentage of the cost of the facility.
It's 2%.
But it's, I mean, we're paying ourselves, so.
That's right. It's a go to one hand into the other.
I do understand and I support it. I just maybe at some time there might be a side note to just what that came to, because you're asking us to do it, and I am certainly prepared to say yes, of course we should. But let's be knowing where we stand.
Right. So sorry about that. It's about $290,000.
Okay. Well, it's not a few hundred. Okay. Thank you. I still support it.
And that won't reduce the amount of the grant we get, will it?
No.
We'll still be able to utilize the full grant.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because those costs would have been included in the grant application.
We have more than enough eligible costs for.
Okay.
So just to clarify, this is not a cost to the public purse. It's simply that we are not charging ourselves that amount of money.
That's correct.
correct. And what, yeah, exactly. So we're not moving it from one hand to the other. And and really what it does do is also ensure that we're have as much money available for the construction itself.
Yeah.
So for clarity's sake, I'm with Councillor Kale. I would like the recommendation to actually give some indication of the magnitude of the fees that are being waived.
So it's approximately $290,000.
Could we just put that in the minutes rather than including it in the recommendation?
Yeah.
Because normally we might have had a staff report that would have said what we were waiving.
Hope, we on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the recommendation is that council waive the driveway access permit fee and the building permit fees for the community center project. I'll move that.
I would like to second it under the circumstances.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And any further discussion on it? I'll ask the question. All in favor, aye. And okay, that's it. Nobody opposed. Thank you. And back to you, sir, Liam, for the CAO update.
Oh, I would just like to welcome Kristen Watson to the first regular council meeting, but not Kristen's first regular council meeting. But I just would like to welcome Kristen back and
phase two.
Yeah. So,
Hey, Kristen.
Oh, there she is.
Yay.
yeah. We're really glad to have Kristen on board, and it's only week 2, but holy smokes, it feels like a lot has happened, and I'm really appreciative of the effort that she's already put in. So great.
All right.
Yeah.
Very
And that's
good.
it. And that's it for me for my CAO update.
Okay, we'll move on to the update to Council on Metro Vancouver business. Metro Vancouver Director David Hawking.
Thank you, Gary. I'm going to talk about 3 things that went on at Metro Vancouver over the last week. And they're all connected to what Sue Ellen mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, that new report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which really emphasizes the need to act more strongly on preventing emissions to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees, and that that the consequences are really more significant than were expected. There's also a fair section of the report on Canada that talks about drought in the prairies, sea level rise, particularly on the East Coast, and forest fires. But I just want to make one more point about this, is that this is not from some sort of environmental group that's been looking into this. Is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is an organization that is formed by global governments, and this means this report was accepted as true by every government in the world, every country in the world. So it's not some hypothetical sort of thing. And there's some governments in there that constantly argue against doing something about climate change, but they all approve this. They recognize this is scientifically accurate. Now, from that context, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. One thing I think I sent to everybody, where we had an opportunity to talk to a Dr. Holland from who's working in Antarctica, Canadian working in Antarctica, and he's looking at the Thwaites Glacier. And some of you could have watched on video, I'm not sure, but I ended up being able to talk to him and he was just on an icebreaker just off the coast. And a little bit about what he's doing. So he's working on the Thwaites Glacier, which has been called in the media the Doomsday Glacier. It's because it's a giant glacier that is melting. And what he was doing is drilling through the glacier to the ocean underneath to see what the temperature of the water was, to see how warm it is. And it's extremely warm. New currents driven by new winds that are melting this glacier. Now, the glacier itself, because it's floating, it won't raise sea level as it melts. It's like an ice cube in a glass. It stays at the same level when it melts. But what it is it's sort of seen as the cork in a bottle. It's preventing giant glaciers from moving off Antarctica and into the ocean, where they will melt and they will raise sea level. So the question, one of the things, and in an earlier report, when we were talking about sea level rise, one of the big questions that's facing us is try to understand sea level rise. The IPCC, the group I talked about a moment ago, talks about it being somewhere between 0.5 meter and maybe more than a meter. but they're really unsure. And one of the reasons for being so unsure is they don't know what's going on in Antarctica. So I asked Dr. Holland, from the work that he's doing, is the work that he's doing and the potential sea level rise, is that already included in the IPCC reports or not? And he said it's not. So that means that when we talk, and you'll notice in a lot of reports, we sort of say, okay, we'll accept the idea that it's going to be a meter of sea level rise by the end of this century. It could be significantly more because of what's going on in Antarctica. The next thing was, you all probably saw in the media, the report about the city of Surrey wanted to approve a light industrial development, a commercial industrial area that goes outside of the urban containment boundary. And that was a long debate, I'd say probably about 15 hours of delegations and debates over 3 meetings, starting in November and just ending last Friday. And it was approved, but the point, I voted against it. I voted against it for several reasons. One was to do with First Nations issues, but I'll mention climate change, because all of the directors are talking about climate change. Everybody has to now. We all recognize we've had terrible summer, and then fall, all sorts of horrible things happening. And yes, we have to do something about it, but this was very much a climate change issue, because it was opening a new area to transportation with trucks and cars, where there's no transit whatsoever. And it was also opening an area of protected lands to being paved. And this was to do with the Little Campbell River, which goes out into the bay, and for the Amiamu First Nation relies on this for salmon. So there are all kinds of climate change and environmental reasons. It was a tough decision, but to address, and the point I'm really making in this whole thing is, to address climate change, we're going to have to make tough decisions. This was one of them, and it didn't work. And we're all going to have to face them, because if it were easy decisions, this would have been dealt with 20 years ago. And that takes me to one more point. I was also participated in a Metro Vancouver sponsored, well, no, it was actually SFU, but it goes across the region, a discussion about road pricing, the potential for road pricing and the need from a climate perspective and a congestion perspective to actually do that. And so it was a really broad and interesting discussion about it, but this is another one of those decisions that is going to be really hard. It's going to have all kinds of people opposing it, but it is going to have to be done to try to reduce transportation emissions. So that's just a series of things that happened through the region where tough decisions are in front of us, and it's really tough to make tough decisions. So that's my report. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, David. I appreciate that. And it seems to be getting very crucial these days. Very crucial. Okay, so we're going to move on to the update to Council on Island Trust business. The Islands Trust Municipal Trustees, Fast and Kale.
Go ahead, Michael.
No, I was going to say, let you go first. I went first last time. There we go.
Did you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'll just let you know that on Thursday, our new Chief Financial Officer and the Islands Trust Chief Administrative Officer, who's in charge of the budget, met. So that was in Kristen's first week on the job. They met to talk about the Bowen Island Municipality levy that's charged through the calculation that's set by the provincial legislation. And Councillor Morse and Trustee Kale and I were also there. And we just had a few questions, and the levy sheet was, we've got it in our email if anybody wants to see it. So that was great. So those two are in contact. And I wanted to mention in our information items, 12.2A is the schedule for next week's Trust Council meeting. And the agenda has since been posted as well. So all the information is there in a big, like 722-page agenda or something like that. At least that's what our executive committee meeting was, agenda was. The I'll just run through them. The governance review, there's a press release or a news release on that explaining what it is. Islands 2050, the upcoming process. Islands Trust Conservancy that Bowen participates in. We've got the 3 nature reserves on Bowen. And there are, by the way, 111 of these now through the Islands Trust area. And the governance report is there as well. I guess, Trustee Kale, you had it added to our agenda. I'll just flag that no trustees have talked about this together yet because at the Trust Council meeting, which is in Nanaimo, and everybody's invited to either come in by Zoom or live stream or come in person, it'll be presented to us by the consultants, the governance report, and people have questions. And then, so trustees haven't even talked about it yet. And that's why I wasn't prepared to talk about it this evening in reference to a question that was asked earlier. And so this governance report doesn't include anything about Bowen Island Municipality or about the Islands Trust Conservancy. Those were excluded. And that's all I was going to say, except anybody's welcome to call me or contact me about anything at any time. That's just for the public or anybody out there.
Okay.
I'll move over.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. And Michael.
Well, thank you. Actually, today, February the 28th, is a rather special day because we can actually welcome the Islands Trust February 2022 governance report. And it is really a very special day because it was in September 2020 that a group of trustees actually got together and this idea was formed, and the result, the 72-odd page result, is in front of you now. And for those people looking at it for the first time, and I did just check with our chair, Peter Luckham, and I said, Peter, this is common property, isn't it? Because I'm going to be mentioning it. And he said, yes, Michael, this is common property. It is not confidential. This is open for general discussion. So what I wanted to do was, firstly, you might be interested just to initially look at the executive summary. And if you care to look at the actual table of contents on the first page, because the table of contents gives a very good idea as to the breadth of this report. However, tonight, I want to focus on 3 items specifically. And because they're in front of us now, and as our regular council meetings go by, I can take one section of this governance report at a time, but it's 2 sections I particularly want to look at tonight. And the first one relates, the first one relates to the draft policy statement. Now, before I start on the draft policy statement, I think everybody knows that the Islands Trust has a sort of preserve and protect object. And one of the things that a lot of trustees are wanting to do is look at this word object, because it's not clear when you're speaking to people generally. If I hold up a pen, this is an object. It's also spelt in the same way as object. So I'm going to probably use what the lawyers tell me is perfectly acceptable when I talk about the preserve and protect mandate or purpose. It is the mandate or purpose of the Islands Trust to preserve and protect. Now, page 19 draws to our attention that despite the Trust's preserve and protect object or mandate being essentially unchanged since set out in legislation 50 years ago, there is a remarkable lack of consensus amongst trustees as to what the object means and entails. Every trustee claims good understanding of the object. All go on to assert there is significant lack of agreement among trustees as to what the object means. In terms of the nature and range of endeavors that should preoccupy Trust Council. The report then makes this comment. This constitutes a fundamental, not to say existential challenge. So we've got a mandate of which we don't have agreement. The report on page 21 goes on to say, the very contentious nature of debate at both Trust Council and amongst Trust area residents on the proposed amendments is a strong indication of the divisions which exist regarding how the island's trust should be interpreted. So we've got a cohesive lack of understanding, and we've got a contentious debate. Now, that's not surprising. The current initiative to amend the policy statement fails to demonstrate leadership. Instead, it has highlighted and perhaps deepened divisions on council and the community at large regarding important challenges facing the trust area. Not surprisingly, the statement has been unamended for 25 years, allowing a number of important issues requiring attention to accumulate over such a long period and not providing more innovative and inclusive approach to policy development, debate and consensus reaching has compounded the difficulties inherent in what would always be a challenging exercise. The report goes on, and I'm quoting from page 25, it has become a dramatic example of Trust Council's collective leadership deficit. So when we're looking at this review of Trust Island's policy, the report leaves us in no doubt as the background, an inability to reach consensus, failure of Trust Council's leadership, policies unattended for 25 years. When I spoke to our Director of Administrative Services, she confirmed to me that a budget of $186,000 for outside services to promote the communications of this draft policy has been reserved, $186,000. The governance report only cost $75,000. My appeal in this regard to Peter Luckham, our chair, is Peter, please.
Can we save this for the Trust Council meeting? Because I've got another meeting to follow.
If you wouldn't mind not interrupting, I'll accord you the same privilege.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to Peter is, in front of Bowen Council, Peter, please show some leadership, because this dog don't hunt. Put it out of its misery, defer it until some significant changes recommended in this report are made, and then allow it to happen on a sound basis. Moving right along to the budget, and what a joy that is. Look at our Bowen Island Financial Advisory Committee, an independent chair, 3 members of our community, 3 qualified members of our community who are certainly not prone to silence and very capable of letting their opinions be felt. That is a pretty healthy state of affairs, even if they do cause us unpleasant articles in the undercurrent, but we'll just have to live with it because that's the way the system works. The Islands Trust equivalent is what is known as the Financial Planning Committee. On this has been one of the lightning rods of why this whole governance report was written. Page 18 refers to the review of committee members will be as important as the review of committee mandates. The Financial Planning Committee being a case in point. Currently, membership includes ex officio the 4 executive committee members, 2 other members appointed by the executive committee, with the result that the executive committee, rather than the Trust Council as a whole, has a predominant effect on and effective control of the Financial Planning Committee. This is an utterly egregious breach of good governance by any standards, regardless of politics. It's just plain bad management. And one of the reasons that so many trustees banded together to get this report written. And it is this committee that makes the recommendation to Trust Council on the budget to be passed. Now, the Financial Planning Committee, I have talked
Maureen,
about.
just hold on. Michael, Maureen, do you have a comment?
Sorry?
Yes, I do have a comment.
Okay.
I think we've hit our 5 minutes. And
Well, we definitely have, we're ahead of schedule. How much longer are you going to be, Michael?
Probably about a couple of minutes.
just finish my
I would not do this.
Michael, let me just finish. I'm really uncomfortable with the process here. And I think you can see that Sue Ellen is as well. This has not gone before the Islands Trust. And we also, as a council, may not have had an opportunity to read and fully digest what is in the report.
No.
And there's lots of content in it, and all the content that Councillor Kale has read is in the report. But he's chosen a lot of very juicy bits.
Well, it's my job, and I reserve the right to report on Island Trust affairs, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm asking for 2 minutes more, Mayor, just when I will be brief, because the budget is absolutely key. And the biggest issue of the budget is the response, and from Bowen Islanders, to the survey on the budget was very considerable. The budget response has raised over the last 4 years for the questionnaire from a mere 87 to nearly 1,300. And 49% of those requested a decrease in Islands Trust expenditures. And frankly, having listened to the FPC, the Financial Planning Committee of Islands Trust, it wasn't listened to. It didn't move the dial. And that is going to cause huge repercussions. Our meeting on the, I think it's the 8th, 9th, and 10th, around that time of March. There is no council meeting before then. So I am briefing this council that these two issues exist. And finally, I do want to make this as a public statement. Out of the 7 of us, 2 of us hold publicly elected positions. And I want to declare that my first loyalty is to Bowen Council, my second to the Islands Trust. And that is a commitment I make, because I couldn't even be a trustee if I wasn't elected as a councillor. So harsh words may be, sometimes they need to be said. Let the report speak for itself. It is indeed an iron fist in a velvet glove, and it will not be denied, and its contents won't be ignored. So whilst it may be a difficult message to put over, I have no hesitation, or neither do I apologize for doing so. Thank you, Mayor, for the extra time.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And Sue Ellen?
Thank you. I just forgot to say one thing,
Okay.
but before that, I'll just respond by, we will have questions for the consultants. For example, the piece that Peter read about the Financial Planning Committee. There are the 4 members of the executive, of which I'm one, and then there are 6 other trustees on that, not 2. So anyway, there's a bunch of questions that we'll be putting to the consultants. And I wanted to mention tomorrow night, March the 1st, at 6 o'clock, there's a webinar with questions and answers about Islands 2050. So this is part of the next set of outreach, and there's an online survey that's open now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. Allison, question for Michael?
Hang on, I'm muted again. Yeah, one of the budget meeting discussion was interesting. And one of the things that I found interesting was part of the reason our budget isn't high, our budget requisition isn't higher than it is because our proportionate share of the assessed values has gone down for the first time in many years relative to the others. So fortunately, the marketplace, some of the other islands have increased in value, and that's having a benefit to us, which is, so we otherwise, I think we could have been up around $350,000. So my other question has to do, we're having a meeting with the Islands Trust executive or on, what's the meeting on the March 14th?
I'm still waiting to hear back from Claire Frater, but it's to do with the Islands 2050 policy statement project, to receive an update on that.
And is it, are they going to present the policy to us? And
that would be the idea.
okay, so we should be advertising that to the general population to watch it, to hear our questions.
We will. Yeah, Claire was going to get back to me by 3 o'clock today. I haven't heard from her, but I'll follow up in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can I just ask, will members of the public be allowed to be there, albeit on Zoom?
Yeah, it'll be a public meeting.
A committee of the whole type where they could ask questions.
Yeah, we'll have public comment.
Okay.
Okay, Sue Ellen?
And I'll let people know that as part of this whole rollout, there will be, they were looking for a venue, a bigger venue, and they're probably going to have for another meeting, and they're going to have a pop-up, probably some kind of pop-up 10 by 10 tent at somewhere where they were asking where would be a good place. So there's it's a whole program rolling out so that everybody can be aware. A little bit more process than the Metro Vancouver 2050. And so stay tuned, there'll be lots of info. And chances for input, that's what it's all about. That's why that online survey is open now. It'll be open till like just past the middle of April.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. Allison, you still get your hand up?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the updates council on Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee meetings. Councillor Nicholson.
We have not met, so no report.
Okay, thank you. And update to council on TransLink Mayor's Council meetings. Councillor Allison Morse.
We had a very short public meeting on the 24th. And I'm sort of pleased to say we got a presentation on ridership, and it's interesting, but I can't find the graph now. The ridership update, bridge traffic is over 100% of what it was pre-COVID, and bus and C-Bus and SkyTrain ridership is running between 50 and 60% of pre-COVID. So that's positive. And the other is the provincial budget comments were good with respect to funding, but not as clear as, wanted. And of course, we're waiting for the federal budget. So there's still higher levels of government funding that is needed to be committed to for just making things meet operations wise. So that's where we're at. Okay.
That's all she wrote. Okay, thanks, Allison. And 11.7 is moved to a closed council meeting. The recommendation is council move to a closed meeting immediately following the regular council meeting to discuss items pursuant to section 90-1 F, G, and I of the community charter. I will move that. I need a second, please. Thank you, Rob. And I ask a question, all in favor? Aye. Okay, very good. We'll move on to that when we get finished up here. We have question period. Alex, do you have any questions? Ah, there you are. How you doing?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. I was just gonna ask if maybe someone could explain more what some of those natural assets might be specifically.
Who wants to take that one on? Bonnie, you there still?
I can
Or
help Bonnie
yeah,
find
Liam?
there.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah. So there are things like wetlands, creeks, biodiversity hotspots, like old mature forests. What other, I mean, there's, sort of tracts of forested lands. Chime in, Liam, and
Yeah, I'll add a
There's
little bit.
natural capital assets get thrown around. The term gets thrown around a lot, and it means different things to different people. But generally, there's a lot of natural occurring elements in the environment that are beneficial to our communities and culture, and so it's used a lot in government perspective when there's a recognition that the natural state or natural assets are providing beneficial services to community members. So clean air, clean water, clean like transportation corridors. And it goes so far as to some communities wanting, or some people wanting, to quantify what the value of those natural assets are. So what is the value of a tree? What does that do in terms of streamside protection, watershed protection, air quality, and those types of things?
Okay, that makes sense.
Sue Ellen, I
Right.
see Sue Ellen's hand up if she wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, just to add, it part of the reason they're called assets is because sometimes, for example, instead of a stormwater management system with all the big culverts and things, sometimes a wetland can do it for cheaper. And or sometimes the pollinators that you need for tomatoes and fruit trees, the wild ones are more efficient than honeybees, and they're just out there in nature. So it's all the kind of ecological goods and services, mostly the services for a municipality, like green infrastructure instead of gray infrastructure, if you want to think about it in terms of water supply, all those things. Yeah, thank you. There's a great website, Alex, mnai.ca, Municipal Natural Assets Initiative. And they have all kinds of information there.
there's also a great publication put out by David Suzuki Foundation called Sound Investments, and that was about how sound and the natural assets inherent in the sound. And another relevant, and I just want to mention it because we are an island surrounded by marine habitats. Eelgrass is another, natural asset that can attenuate waves and filter out pollution, store carbon, things like that as well. I just wanted to highlight the eelgrass because we talk a lot about it.
Okay, that's perfect.
Thanks, Bonnie. I got Maureen too. Anything, Maureen?
Yeah, just Alex, I sent you a link to Gibson's Natural Asset Management Plan. So that gives you a sense of how it plays out in a municipal environment.
Okay, perfect. And then just real quick, it could be for Councillor Kale or Fast. There's these 15 recommendations at the end of the Islands Trust governance piece. I was wondering, is it expected they'll all be adopted, or is that yet to be determined?
I think it's yet to be determined. I do agree with Councillor Fast that our meeting is in March. I think 8th, 9th and 10th are the dates, Alex. So in fairness, the most important thing will be set up the governance committee, and depending on how that goes, I guess the rest will probably fall out of that. And I couldn't possibly guess the pace because I just don't know until then.
Yeah, thanks,
Alex,
Michael.
you might want to get your on the Islands Trust news release list.
You can subscribe and get the emails.
Yeah.
And I'll just add, I think reviews are good for organizations. And if this strengthens the Islands Trust's ability to preserve and protect our beautiful islands, that's great. And we'll see what happens at the, this is just the first meeting where the 26 trustees will hear it presented from the consultants and start thinking about what to do. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. All right, Alex, and
Perfect.
anything else?
That's all for me tonight.
All right, thank you very much for all the good
No.
work you do.
All right, thanks for having me on the Zoom call here.
You betcha.